You hired a brand strategist. Maybe you paid a lot. You got a mood board, a style guide, some taglines, and a polished logo. 6 months later, your positioning is exactly the same. Your sales conversations sound exactly the same, and your team has gone back to doing whatever they were doing before. You're sitting on a beautiful deck that nobody is using. In this video, I'm going to show you what that work is actually supposed to accomplish. Because if you don't know, you'll keep paying for deliverables that don't drive anything. If you've hired a brand strategist before and it felt like nothing changed, keep watching. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why. Today, we're going to walk through what brand strategy actually is and what it isn't. We'll look at what most clients assume a brand strategist does. We'll also look at what a lot of practitioners actually do. And I'm going to be honest about some of the things I've done myself that weren't as useful as I thought at the time. And then I'm going to break down the 5 things a real brand strategist should be doing to produce results for a business. If you're a CMO, a marketing director, a VP of marketing, or a business owner who has ever written a check for brand work and wondered what you actually got for it, this video is for you. When most business owners hear the phrase brand strategist, they picture something probably visual. Someone who will make the company look better, like clean up their logo, modernize the website, make the marketing feel more premium, more polished, more consistent. So when they hire a brand strategist, here's what they're usually expecting. A stronger visual identity, a cleaner, more professional look, maybe a tagline that finally captures what they do, perhaps a style guide so the team stops using 6 different fonts in their presentations. And look, all of those things are good things to have. A strong visual presence matters. And consistency is really the key. But there's a much deeper set of assumptions underneath that. Most people assume that branding is mostly about awareness. Maybe you're not known enough. You don't look credible enough. So you need a brand strategist to help more people recognize you. They see the strategist role as campaign support, like clever taglines, social templates, and ad concepts to make their marketing look more cohesive. They expect deliverables like a logo package and a brand style guide, and they rarely expect the conversation to touch things like pricing strategy or channel selection, audience identification, messaging optimization, or why their sales cycle is so long. See, that gap between what clients expect and what brand strategy actually does is where a lot of marketing dollars disappear every single year. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because a lot of people who call themselves brand strategists are not intentionally shortchanging their clients. They genuinely believe they're doing meaningful work. But watch what they actually deliver. They run a discovery session with sticky notes on a whiteboard. They conduct a competitive audit and put together a grid where the brand sits relative to competitors. They develop detailed buyer personas, usually named things like Corporate Carl or Entrepreneur Emily, with photos pulled from stock image sites. They put together a mood board with images of aspirational brands. They define your brand archetype, whether you're a hero or a caregiver or a sage. They talk a lot about your why. They write a brand manifesto. And then they show up with an 80-slide deck that's gorgeous. It has typography and color, and it really does look like strategy. And they walk you through it. And you nod along, and it all sounds right. But then you actually try to use it, and you realize that a lot of it doesn't actually answer the questions that drive business decisions. Like, who should we be talking to first and why? What message will make them pay attention? What's the one thing we need them to believe in order to buy? Why are we losing to our main competitor? What's actually keeping our ideal customer from choosing us? A lot of brand strategy work doesn't answer those questions. Instead, you get things like be authentic or tell your story or communicate your value, be premium. Okay, that's fine. And then what? The advice is so vague, it could apply to literally any company in any category. Those are nice euphemisms, but not a strategy. If it can't tell you what to do differently, it's not actually driving anything. I want to stop here and be real with you because I think it matters. I've done every single one of those things I just described. Mood boards, brand archetypes, manifesto copy, discovery workshops with sticky notes everywhere at different points in my career. Working across hospitality, consumer brands, professional services, I did them all. And I want to be fair to those tools because sometimes they work Sometimes a brand archetype exercise surfaces a genuinely useful insight about how the company wants to show up. Sometimes a well-crafted manifesto can become an internal rallying call that actually unites a team around a shared direction. Sometimes a competitive audit is the thing that finally forces leadership to confront that they are not as differentiated as they think. So these exercises can be legitimate. The problem is when the exercises become the deliverable. When presenting the framework is the same as doing the strategy. That's when you're just delivering fluff. Over the years, I've tightened my process considerably. And what I noticed is that the clients who get real, measurable revenue level results were not the ones with the best mood boards. They were the ones where the strategy answered specific business questions, like where are we losing people in the funnel? Why do customers choose us but then leave? What's the one thing we could say that would make our ideal customer stop scrolling? When brand strategy is doing its actual job, it answers questions like those, and it produces decisions that change what you actually do in the market. So let's get into the 5 things a real brand strategist does. And I want to be clear, this isn't a checklist you hand to someone and say, have you done all of these? This is a way of thinking about what the work is actually supposed to accomplish. Positioning is the most important strategic decision a company makes. It is the foundation of everything else in marketing. And what it answers are very specific questions like, who are you for? What do you uniquely do for them? And why you are the better choice over every other option they have, including doing nothing. Positioning is not a tagline. It's not a mission statement. It's not a value proposition written for a website header. Positioning is a decision. And like all real decisions, it requires trade-offs. When you position yourself for a specific audience with a specific problem, you're also deciding that you're not the best choice for everyone else. And that's hard for most companies to accept. They want to be for everyone to maximize their customers or their audience. They want to maximize their pool of potential customers. So they try to be all things to all people and end up being compelling to no one. A real brand strategist helps you make that positioning decision and then defends it, because the pressure to dilute, it's going to come. It'll come from the sales team who says we should be going after a different segment. It'll come from the CEO who wants to add more capabilities to the pitch. It'll come from the board who thinks you're leaving revenue on the table by not being more broadly positioned. Holding the line of positioning is one of the most valuable things a brand strategist can do, because positioning clarity is what makes every downstream marketing decision easier and cheaper. A brand is not what you say about yourself. A brand is what people believe about you. And what people believe determines whether they choose you and what they're willing to pay. There's a real, measurable economic value to being perceived as high quality, trustworthy, and competent. Companies that have strong brand equity can charge more, win more often, and hold their market position through downturns in ways that weaker brands just can't. Building perceived value is about ensuring that every touch point the customer has with your business reinforces the thing you want them to believe. The quality of your marketing communications, the way your sales team shows up in a first conversation, the experience of your onboarding process, the design of your packaging or your website or your proposals. All of it is perception. A real brand strategist thinks about every one of those touch points and asks one question. Does this increase or decrease what people believe they'll get from us? One of the most expensive problems in any marketing organization is messaging that isn't consistent. Your CEO describes the company one way. Your sales team describes it in a completely different way, which is usually whatever seems to be working in the room at that moment. Your website says something that was written 2 years ago and is now slightly off. Your ads are saying something else because the agency thought it would perform better, and the customer gets a fragmented experience. They can't easily explain what you do. They can't articulate why they should choose you over the alternatives. And if they can't explain it to themselves, then they can't justify the decision internally, and they absolutely cannot refer you to someone else. Word of mouth is one of the most efficient forms of marketing that exists. But word of mouth only works when your customers can actually communicate your value clearly and concisely. If they can't, you're leaving the best sales channel on the table. Companies use Net Promoter Score as their primary KPI. How likely would you recommend us to someone else? But I think there's an even more significant nuance to that. Maybe what they should ask is, what would you tell other people about us? Because if their answers are all over the map, you know you have a problem. A real brand strategist builds a messaging architecture, a clear, prioritized hierarchy of what you say, in what order, and at what stage of the customer relationship. It becomes the tool the whole organization uses, and it gets tighter over time. A company with tight, consistent messaging consistently outperforms a company with scattered messaging, even if the scattered company has a better product. People buy what they understand. Strategy without execution is just writing. Execution without strategy is just activity. And activity is not the same as results. A real brand strategist doesn't hand you a positioning document, collect a fee, and walk away. They think about how the strategy translates into what you actually do. What does the sales deck say? What does the email nurture sequence accomplish? What is the paid media campaign communicating, and to whom? And at what stage of the buying process? Every channel has a job, and the job of every channel should map back to where the customer is in their decision-making process. Some channels are for building awareness. They introduce you to people who don't know you exist yet. Some channels are for building preference. They convert people who are aware of you into people who are actively considering you. Some channels are for driving purchase. They push the people who are already considering you over the line. If you're using the awareness channels to drive immediate purchase, you're just burning your budget. And if you're using your conversion channels to introduce yourself, you're losing sales. A real brand strategist thinks across the entire system and makes sure every piece of it is doing the right job at the right time. And they make sure all of it is aligned to the same positioning and the same messaging. So that a customer who sees your ad, then visits your website, then gets on a call with your sales team, is getting a coherent, reinforcing experience in every step. That coherence is what builds trust fast, and trust is what shortens your sales cycle. Build systems that track effectiveness. The last thing, and the one that most brand strategists conveniently skip, is measurement. Brand is often used as a reason to avoid accountability. Like, they'll say things like, brand is a long game, brand is hard to measure, you'll feel it over time. And look, brand does play out over a long time, but it doesn't mean the work is unmeasurable. That's an excuse, not an explanation. You can measure brand awareness in your target market. You can track consideration and preference, how often you're being evaluated by the right buyers and whether that's increasing. You can track the quality of your inbound leads over time. You can look at your win rate in competitive deals. You can measure your referral rate. You can see whether your average deal size is increasing as your perceived value grows. None of that is impossible. It just requires setting up the right tracking from the beginning, which many brand engagements never do. A real brand strategist helps you figure out what to measure and builds a simple system to track it. Not so you can produce a report, but so you can make smarter decisions about where to put your money and your time next quarter. Because strategy without feedback is just guessing with a nice deck. What this means for you. If you're considering hiring a brand strategist, here's one question that will tell you everything you need to know before you sign anything. What decisions will this work help us make, and how will we know if it's working? If that answer is vague, you know what you're probably going to get. And if you've already been through a brand engagement and you feel like you're sitting on a beautiful document that nobody's actually using, go back to these 5 things: positioning, perceived value, messaging, channel alignment, measurement. Run the work you already have against those 5 criteria and see what's missing. Because brand decoration and brand strategy are not the same thing. One makes you look better, the other makes you grow. If this video was useful, subscribe to the channel and check out some of the other videos we've done here on brand strategy, marketing frameworks, and how to turn your marketing into real business results. It's all here. Remember, you don't need to buy more ads when you have better ideas.